This is ShadowQuant, Week Ahead, brought to you by AriesLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Sunday, May 10, 2026, and this is the New York session. Now, let's get into it. Welcome to ShadowQuant's Week Ahead. The big catalyst this week? A Fed decision that could tip the scales on risk assets and a crypto rally that's got the bulls buzzing. Let's check the scorecard. I called the EFFOMC pause, and the market bought it. The 2-year/10-year curve flattened further. My call on the yield curve was correct.
I said SPY would hold above 720 and it did. But I missed the 5% gain in QQQ. I underestimated the tech rotation.
I said Bitcoin would hold 61K, and it did, but I didn't see the 8% pop in altcoins. That was a surprise.
I flagged the VIX as overbought and it rolled over, but I missed the dollar's strength. I thought the euro would hold better.
We're all trending in the right direction, but there's room for improvement.
Macro landscape. Pulse, what's the big picture?
The Fed meets on Tuesday, but the bigger question is the EFFOMC's forward guidance. The 2-year/10-year curve is flat at 0.48 basis points. That's a warning signal. Inflation is still above target, 3.29% year-over-year CPI, 3.2% core PCE. The Fed is hawkish, but the market is betting on a pause. The economy is still resilient, but there are cracks. The labor market is cooling, and the yield curve is a red flag. This week, the big move is the Fed's dot plot and the EFFOMC statement. If they signal more rate hikes, risk assets could get hit. If they stay patient, the bulls might run.
Thanks, Pulse Equities, Grid, Earnings, and Indices.
Let's start with the earnings calendar. The week is packed with key reports: Microsoft on Monday, Apple on Tuesday, and Amazon on Thursday. Microsoft is expected to report $2.79 earnings per share. The stock is up 13% from its 52-week low and has been a leader in the tech rotation. If it beats, the sector could rally further. Apple is expected to report $1.56 earnings per share. The stock is up 12% from its 52-week low, and it's been a key driver of the Nasdaq's strength. If it beats, the tech sector could see more momentum. Amazon is expected to report $0.26 earnings per share. The stock is down 9% from its 52-week high and has underperformed the broader market. If it misses, the market may take it as a sign of e-commerce fatigue.
I agree with the tech rotation, but I'm watching the Fed's dot plot more closely. If they signal another rate hike, the market could reverse.
I'm watching the VIX. It's at 17.19, which is normal. But if earnings season is volatile, that could push it higher.
Currencies and commodities. SPECTER.
The dollar is still strong, but it's not dominating. Euro-dollar is at 1.1786. The key support is 1.1677, and the resistance is 1.1797. If the euro breaks below 1.1677, that could signal more weakness. Cable is at 1.3631. The key support is 1.3513. And the resistance is 1.3644. If the pound breaks above 1.3644, that could signal a rally. Dollar-yen is at 156.69. The key support is 155.3, and the resistance is 157.93. If the yen breaks below 155.3, that could signal more weakness. Dollar Swiss is at 0.7764. The key support is 0.7762, and the resistance is 0.7848. Aussie dollar is at 0.7247. The key support is 0.7136, and the resistance is 0.7278. If the Aussie breaks above 0.7278, that could signal a rally. Dollar CAD is at 1.3676. The key support is 1.3578, and the resistance is 1.371. If the Canadian dollar breaks below 1.3578, that could signal more weakness.
I'm watching the correlation between the dollar and crypto. If the dollar strengthens, that could pressure altcoins. But if the dollar weakens, that could support Bitcoin and Ethereum. The fear and greed index is at 62, that's neutral. If it moves higher, that could signal more risk-on sentiment. If it moves lower, that could signal more risk-off. The on-chain data shows that Bitcoin is still in a consolidation phase, but the volume is picking up. Ethereum is also in a consolidation phase, but the TVL is stable. Altcoins are showing signs of strength, but they're still in a sideways trend.
Digital assets, CIPHER.
Bitcoin is at $62,400. The key support is $61,000, and the resistance is $63,500. If it breaks above $63,500, that could signal a rally. Ethereum is at $3,520. The key support is $3,450, and the resistance is $3,600. If it breaks above $3,600, that could signal a rally. The fear and greed index is at 62, that's neutral. If it moves higher, that could signal more risk-on sentiment. If it moves lower, that could signal more risk-off.
I agree with the macro angle, but I'm still wary of the volatility. The dollar is still strong, and that's a drag on crypto. If the dollar strengthens, that could put pressure on altcoins. But if the Fed stays patient, that could support the market.
Let's bring it together. Apex cross-market themes.
Let's start with the macro backdrop. The Fed is at a crossroads. They're facing inflation that's still above target, but the economy is showing signs of softening. The yield curve is flat, which is a red flag, but the market is betting on a pause. If the Fed signals more rate hikes, that could pressure equities and crypto. If they stay patient, that could support the bulls.
I think the Fed will stay cautious. They're facing inflation that's still above target, but the economy is showing signs of softening. They're not going to raise rates, but they're not going to cut either. They'll stay patient.
I think the tech rotation will continue. The tech giants are still leading the market and the sector is showing strength. If they beat earnings, that could drive the Nasdaq higher.
I think crypto will outperform, but it's still volatile. If the Fed stays patient, that could help the market. But if the Fed stays hawkish, that could pressure the market.
I think the dollar will stay strong. The Fed is still hawkish and the economy is resilient. But if the Fed stays patient, that could weaken the dollar.
Dominant narrative is that the Fed is at a crossroads. They're facing inflation that's still above target, but the economy is showing signs of softening. The market is betting on a pause, but the Fed is still cautious. The tech sector is leading the market, but the value sectors are underperforming. The dollar is still strong, but it's not dominating. Crypto is still volatile, but the bulls are in control. The big move this week is the FOMC statement and the dart plot. If the Fed signals more rate hikes, that could pressure the market. If they stay patient, that could support the bulls.
Calls on the record, one each.
I'm calling the FOMC statement. If the Fed stays patient, the market will rally. My call, 2-year/10-year yield curve, target 0.5% by Friday.
I'm calling the Nasdaq. The tech sector is leading and the earnings calendar is strong. My call, QQQ, target 715 by Friday.
I'm calling Bitcoin. The bulls are in control and the market is still volatile. My call, Bitcoin, target 63,000 by Friday.
I'm calling the dollar. The Fed is still hawkish and the economy is resilient. My call, dollar yen, target 158 by Friday.
I'm calling the S&P. The tech sector is leading and the earnings calendar is strong. My call, SPY, target 740 by Friday.
If you're finding value in this analysis, support the project at Patreon. com//ShadowQuant. Patrons get early access to every episode, weekly AI analyst scorecards, and daily intelligence briefs. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, hit that follow button and leave a rating. It helps more traders discover the show. We appreciate you. This content is generated by artificial intelligence and is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial advice. Markets carry significant risk of loss. Always do your own research before making any investment or trading decisions. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant. Stay tuned for the after-hours session where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.